President Trump is slapping stiff tariffs on America's top three trading partners: Canada, Mexico, and China.
They owe us a lot of money, and I'm sure they're going to pay.
Trump is imposing a 25% tariff on nearly all goods from Canada and Mexico, and an additional 10% on imports from China.
And breaking this morning, one trade war is on after the U.S. retreated from two others. The Wall Street Journal declared this morning Trump blinks on tariffs against Canada and Mexico after receiving concessions the countries had largely agreed to weeks or months ago.
China quickly responded and announced it's to do the same in a tit-for-tat spat that could impact the global economy. China's finance ministry is saying the measures against U.S. goods would take effect next Monday. An extra 10% tax will be added to goods including crude oil and agricultural machinery. Imports of coal and liquefied natural gas will be hit with 15% tariffs.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we're diving into Trump's latest tariff policy. And let me tell you, he's not just going after China this time. He's bringing Canada and Mexico into the mix too. This massive round of tariff hikes screams unpredictability and unilateralism. On February 1st, 2025, Trump signed an executive order slapping a 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico, while adding another 10% on top of the already sky-high tariffs on Chinese goods. That brings the average U.S. tariff on Chinese products up to a whopping 28% and significantly hikes costs for Canada and Mexico as well. This move has sparked discussions and concerns across the globe. Many economists argue that these tariffs will pile up costs for American businesses and consumers alike. A lot of the affected goods are everyday essentials, so these tariffs will likely lead to supply chain disruptions and rising prices. More importantly, this could shake up the stability of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, potentially disrupting deeply integrated supply chains and putting a dent in North America's economy. But just as things were heading toward a full-scale trade war, Trump threw a curveball. On February 3rd, he suddenly announced a one-month delay on the tariffs for Mexico and Canada after some last-minute negotiations. Mexico agreed to tighten border control and crack down on fentanyl trafficking, while Canada promised to beef up border security. This shows that Trump is once again using tariffs as a bargaining chip to get leverage in other areas. And honestly, this playbook is nothing new. Back in 2019, he pulled the same stunt with Mexico, threatening tariffs before getting them to ramp up border enforcement. So why is Trump swinging the tariff hammer this time? First, there's the border security issue. His administration claims that illegal immigration is out of control and that Mexico isn't doing enough to stop migrants from crossing into the U.S. On top of that, fentanyl smuggling is being painted as a major justification for these tariffs. But plenty of experts argue that the real problem lies within the U.S. itself: demand and market loopholes, not Mexico's policies. Then there's the trade deficit. Trump has long complained that America is getting a raw deal in trade with Canada and Mexico. He believes the trade imbalance hurts the U.S. and that these tariffs will force new negotiations on terms more favorable to American businesses. However, trade deficits are complex, and tariffs alone won't fix them. In fact, they could backfire, prompting retaliatory tariffs that make things worse for American exporters. Lastly, there's the push to protect U.S. manufacturing. Industries like steel, aluminum, and automotive have been calling for protection from cheaper imports. Tariffs are meant to drive up costs for foreign competitors, making domestic goods more attractive. But here's the catch. U.S. manufacturing is expensive, and even with tariffs, companies might not bring production back home. Trump's trade war with China kicked off in 2018 with escalating tariffs. First, a 25% tariff hit $50 billion worth of Chinese goods, then a 10% levy on another $200 billion, later bumped to 25%. By 2020, when Trump left office, tariffs were in place on $360 billion worth of Chinese products, with an average rate of 18%. Now in 2025, Trump is back at it, adding another 10% across the board, bringing that figure up to 28%, the highest it's ever been. Over the past few years, China has made moves to reduce its reliance on the U.S. market. It's been restructuring supply chains, expanding into other global markets, and preparing for trade disruptions. In response to the latest tariff hikes, China isn't sitting idly by. As of February 10th, 2025, China has hit back with its own set of retaliatory tariffs. These include a 15% tariff on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas, and a 10% tariff on crude oil, large vehicles, and agricultural machinery. Beijing has also stepped up scrutiny of American companies, launching antitrust investigations and tightening regulations. These moves send a clear message. China is standing firm and ready to counter any trade aggression. Tariffs don't just impact governments and corporations, they hit everyday people too. For American consumers, this means higher prices on essentials. Mexico and Canada supply much of the U.S.'s food, energy, and building materials, so costs will rise. Cars will be pricier since tariffs on auto parts will drive up manufacturing costs, and businesses that rely on imported raw materials will see expenses soar, ultimately passing the burden on to consumers. On the flip side, Chinese consumers might see some price increases on American goods, but the impact will likely be minimal. China has been diversifying its supply chains for years, reducing its dependence on U.S. imports. Plus, with its growing trade ties in emerging markets, it's becoming less vulnerable to American tariff policies. Trump's goal is to weaken China's economy through tariffs, but will it work? That's up for debate. China has already made significant adjustments, shifting trade patterns and expanding partnerships with other nations. Meanwhile, U.S. manufacturing isn't exactly primed to take over. With high labor costs and logistical challenges, it's not as simple as just bring the jobs back. And in the bigger picture, this trade war could end up accelerating China's push for technological independence and global trade expansion, something that might not be in America's best interest. Trump's tariff strategy is once again making waves internationally. While he argues it's about protecting American industry and jobs, the long-term consequences remain uncertain. If history tells us anything, it's that these trade wars often create more problems than they solve. We'll be keeping a close eye on how this unfolds and how global markets react. Meanwhile, governments and businesses are already adapting, finding new ways to navigate the shifting trade landscape. One thing's for sure, this trade war isn't going away anytime soon, and the global economy will be feeling its effects for years to come. That's all for today. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Let me know in the comments what you think about these tariffs. Good idea or economic disaster? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.